I've got a copy of the original RSGB bulletin, July 1958, where Louis Varney, G5RV, first published the details of his multiband antenna. And there are one or two facts there which I think have been lost in time, so I thought it would be quite interesting to go through the original article and see if we can find a few facts that maybe are not generally known, particularly to some of the newer amateurs in ham radio. Well, the first interesting fact is that this antenna was conceived by Louis Varney in 1946. That means to say that next year it will be 80 years old. And in 1946, in February 1946, ham radio operators were allowed to go back on the ham radio bands after the restrictions during the Second World War. And another interesting fact is that Louis Varney said this antenna will cover 160 metres through to 10 metres. Well, I think today most people think that the full-size G5RV covers 80 metres, but in fact Louis Varney intended it to cover 160 metres through to 10 metres. Quite why it took Louis Varney so many years to publish the details in the bulletin, I don't know, because it was conceived in 46, but it wasn't until 1958 he actually published the details, though he did say that he passed the details around to many of his friends. But as soon as that antenna was published in the bulletin, the RSGB bulletin, it created quite a stir. And in fact, it was to make the call sign of G5RV one of the most famous call signs in the world. And yet, the actual article in the RSGB bulletin only ran to 1.5 pages. So when you open the page of your RSGB bulletin back in 1958, you probably didn't realise that this particular issue of the bulletin was going to change the world of ham radio in terms of an all-band wire antenna that lots and lots of amateurs were going to fit into their garden. Now I'm putting up on the screen now the original drawing of the full-size G5RV. You have to remember that when this antenna was conceived back in 1946, we didn't have walk bands and we didn't even have the 15-metre band. That came on much later. But when the antenna was published in RSGB Bulletin, we'd also got 15 metres. So before we look at the method of feeding it, which is an interesting topic, let's actually look at the bands that it covers. On 80 metres, the antenna is a short dipole. The point of maximum current is actually about 15 feet down the feeder. On 40 metres, it's an extended 40-metre dipole, a bit longer than your standard dipole. And on 20 metres, it really comes into its own. That's really the sweet spot of this antenna. It's three half waves in phase, and it gives a bit of gain in both directions, broadside to the run of the wire. On 21 megahertz or 15 metres, it works as a slightly extended 2 full waves in phase, and on 10 metres, it works as 2 1.5 wavelengths in phase. As originally published, there were 2 versions of the G5RV antenna. And I think the original version was the one designed to be fed with balanced line all the way back to the antenna matching unit. And Louis Varney does make the point that that antenna with balanced line back to the antenna matching unit is the one with the lowest loss, as you'd expect with balanced line. And I think in his day, you actually had to make your balanced line, which was 6-inch wide balanced line. You can replace that with 450 ohm ladder line these days with minimum difference in the loss. It also makes the point that the actual ladder line should be odd multiples or even multiples of a quarter wave. Now, I thought about that and I think actually if you translate that into I would say to English, if you translate that, it actually means that the ladder line should be multiples of a quarter wave. And I think the reason for that is, and this is, by the way, this is multiples of a quarter wave on 20 metres. And I think the reason for that is that the antenna line, if it's a quarter wavelength of line, then it is a medium impedance, and if it's half wavelength of line, it's a medium impedance. So this sort of medium impedance replicates itself. So basically you need multiples of a quarter wave length of balanced line. Now this is not set in stone. The reason he went for this is that it gave a reasonable reactance at the end for the antenna matching unit to cope with. But I wouldn't place too much emphasis on that. I think I'd just take a convenient length of balanced line and see how you get on. And if you have a problem, just trim it back a bit or make it a bit longer. And obviously best to make it slightly longer than you think you need. It gives you a chance to trim it back. So that was the version that he originally used back in 1946. I have seen various videos on G5RVs. One said compared the G5RV with a doublet. Well, the G5RV is a doublet. There's nothing magical about the G5RV that makes it operate differently from any other form of doublet. The critical with the part of the G5RV really is the top section, which is 3 half waves in phase on 20 meters, and that then gives you an antenna which performs pretty well on the other bands. So the G5RV is a doublet, and you feed it with balanced line back to the matching unit. Now in the original article he didn't actually give any details of the value of the capacitor or the inductance. I guess in those days people knew that you needed a certain inductor for the lowest band, 80 meters, and it was probably a lot of trial and error. And I think most stations that made their own antenna matching units, as indeed most of them had to, would have a matching unit that covers 80 meters through to 10 meters. But anyway, there was no published details of that, and a modern day matching unit would work quite well. And if you haven't got a balance unit, then you'd have to put something like a balun there. Now the second version of the G5RV is the one that is fed with coax cable or balanced line, low impedance balanced line. And in this particular article in July 58, he describes the alternative, the second version, and that comprises your top section of 102 feet, and then you've got a length of balanced line, again which would have been 600 ohm balanced line. That section is 34 foot long, which is actually a half wave on 20 meters. So if you're using 450 ohm ladder line, you've got to allow for a velocity factor of approximately 90%, so it'll be slightly shorter than a half wavelength. And then it's fed either with coax cable or low impedance balanced line. Both these lengths of line are 70 ohms, because in the 1950s there was a plentiful supply of 70 ohm coax cable and also of a 70 ohm balanced line, but there was precious little 50 ohm. And in fact 70 ohm coax cable gave a better match at the bottom of that matching section, the 34 foot matching section. So you see that if you use 50 ohm coax, then you've got a slightly increase in loss, because the impedance is moving further away from the impedance that is seen at the bottom of that ladder line. But the impedance seen at the bottom of that ladder line varies from band to band, and he does make the point that there will be VSWR on the cable. Now he also makes quite an interesting point. He doesn't recommend the use of ribbon, 300 ohm ribbon. He says because on a number of the bands there's a significant standing wave ratio, or standing wave on that line. It increases the loss, and the ribbon feeder is not recommended. So I think 450 ohm ladder line is pretty close to the traditional 600 ohm open wire, and I would recommend that you use that, again allowing for the 10% velocity factor. And also he does make the point that it's not a good idea to use a balun at the point where the coax connects to the balance line, because that can increase the loss. He favours just connecting the coax cable directly to the balance line. Now, my experience is that it's also wise to actually add a line isolator at the point where the coax connects to the balance line. That chokes off the major part of common mode currents going down the coax. And for good measure, I tend to also put a line isolator at the point where the line goes into the transceiver. But in summary, he says that the antenna works very well on all bands. Now, all bands being 80 meters, 40, 20, 15 and 10. I did see a video that was shot about 2 or 3 years ago where the person that published the video claimed that there was a loss of 6 dB on a 30-foot length of coax on 10 meters going back to the transceiver. Well, where that figure came from, I do not know. It doesn't make sense at all. If you actually do a rough sort of rule of thumb calculations of what sort of impedance you're going to get, it's nowhere near the impedance or mismatch that you'd have to get a 6 dB loss. So where that guy got that figure from, I just do not know. Basically, the antenna works with a reasonable length of coax cable on all bands. Now, what about 160 meters? Okay, well, you really have to go back to the first version, the balanced line open wire feeder. He says short out those two feeders together, and you basically have a vertical antenna with a large capacity hat on top. And I think it's traditionally known as the Marconi antenna. And he says that works very well on 160 meters. So yes, if you want to work 160 meters, you've got to disconnect the feeder, put it together, and strap it together and feed it with an antenna matching unit. It was done quite frequently by stations back in the 50s and 60s. I'm not sure that so many stations do it these days. And it's basically it's a random wire, but it does apparently work very well on 160 meters. He also made the point that raising and lowering the antenna changes the actual impedance seen at the bottom of that matching section, the 34-foot open wire feeder. So it's interesting that even back in 1958, G5RV saw the need for a coax feed, but then offered 1 or 2 warnings, and it does then sort of raise the question, what is special about a G5RV? Well, really and truly, the G5RV is a doublet. The special bit about it is the top section, which he decided should be 102 foot because he wanted that sweet spot on 20 meters, and it also happened to produce an antenna with a reasonable ability to match transceivers on the other bands. Bear in mind, of course, that when Louis Varney was designing this antenna, when it was in frequent use in the 50s and 60s, most of the transmitters or transceivers, some of them highly, in those days it was usually a separate receiver and transmitter. But anyway, the transmitter section had a Pi network, and a Pi network was quite happy with a 3 or 4 or even 5 to 1 VSWR on the coax line. It would cope okay. Today we have built-in match units in the transceivers, and again they are quite happy to match a G5RV. All the modern transceivers I've tried with built-in ATUs will match a G5RV. Some of the earlier transceivers go back 10 or 15 years with built-in ATUs, may struggle on certain bands. So there we are. That's the basic, I'm going to say the history. That is how the original G5RV was conceived. 2 versions, one with open wire feeder back to the matching unit, and the other with a stub section which produced a reasonable impedance to then take 70 ohm coax back to the transceiver. Today we use 50 ohm. We accept that there's a slight increase in the mismatch, but by all accounts, all the stations that I work on the air, they all claim that they're very happy with the G5RV. There is a modification, I think it's called the ZS6BKW, but the only reason for that modification was to try and improve the matching at the point where the kayak's connected. But if you run balanced line as a traditional doublet all the way back to the transceiver, then there's no point in changing it. It works very well. Another thing I saw recently was a video I came across. It said, "Is the 5RV an antenna or a dummy load?" Well, I mean, I don't know why people publish videos like that. I mean, it's just, well, I'll make no further comment. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I enjoyed actually going back ferreting about in these magazines and finding out how things were back in the early days. And the early days, really, G5RV was one of the most successful antennas in the early days. It certainly is one of the most familiar call signs around the world. And, well, Louis Varney did very well in coming up with an antenna which would fit in a lot of back gardens. What about the half-size version? Well, he didn't mention the half-size version then, because I don't think he'd even thought about the half-size version. I think in those days many gardens would accommodate a 100-foot length of wire. But he did come back in a later short article and comments in Technical Topics, and he did he did give a talk, I think, at the Norfolk on the Norwich Club, I think, and he said, yes, a half-size version works well. It's scaled down, it's half-size, therefore it works on 40, 20, 15 and 10, and I've used the half-size version, it works okay. There we are. Well, if you're thinking about putting a half-size 5RV up or full-size 5RV, I hope this has given you some information. I hope it's given you some confidence. It's going to be quite a nice antenna. And even if you can't get it up at halfway above the ground on 20 metres, it doesn't really matter. They originally said, Louis Varney didn't say this, but a lot of stations I've heard say you've got to have that matching section hanging down straight down to the ground. Well, you don't. You don't. As long as you've got perhaps 10 or 15 feet, I don't know, what's that, 5 metres, something like that. As long as you've got 5 metres going down, then the rest can be taken away at an angle. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for your support on this channel. It's much appreciated. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.